Well, my name is Jackson. I'm 27 years old. I am from Barnhart, Missouri, which is just a little suburb outside of St. Louis, Missouri. I grew up in a very loving home. Both parents, my mother and father, have been together, the whole time. As far, before I was even born, they were together. Really good, solid Christian home. Brought up in the faith. My father is a worship pastor back home, and my mother is and has always been, very involved in the church, serving in different areas. So, I was brought up in a very healthy home. My family, parents loved me. I also have a brother and sister younger than me. I'm the oldest. But we had a normal childhood, as far, as I'm concerned. We would go to church Wednesdays and Sundays and Sunday nights, which those Sunday night services were always just brutal. Did not want to be there. But yeah, very, like I said, normal childhood. Went to public school. Parents weren't, super strict with things, but they were definitely going to raise, their children in the faith. Nothing was forced on me or my brothers and sisters. Whenever well, I can speak for myself, the decision to put my faith in Jesus happened at a young age, and that was something not forced. They made sure to ask those questions, that confirmed not me wanting to do it just based on what someone else was doing. Making sure that I understood that. So, yeah, I am in West Virginia. I live in a sober living in Nitro, West Virginia. I've been here since September 14th. Um, I am in, like I said, a sober living, and I'm in recovery. This is one of the multiple attempts, in recovery and sobriety. And so, what I'm doing today is really taking a step. At first, it was a step uh, out of comfort into, the unfamiliar, into a different state that I've never been at before. Um, and I do believe that, like, day by day, my life is changing. Some days are a lot different than others as far as, the progress being made in that. But so far in my time here in almost 10 months, I can definitely say that progress has been made. And that is absolutely because of The Rock, where I started it a long time ago. And it's a program of action, it's a program of love, it's a program of brotherhood, of accountability, and a lot of other different things that just make it to be an environment and a place to where somebody, if they decide to put the work in themselves, can have the most success. And yeah, so the first time I drank was at a buddy's house. We were swimming at his pool, and I didn't get drunk. I acted like I was drunk. Maybe I was a little drunk, but not like the second time. The second time was my sophomore year of high school. The first time that I just mentioned was I was probably about around 15 years old. Um, there was one, time that I had a sip of beer and smoked a little bit of weed in the seventh grade. But as far as the addiction side of things and the dependency upon those things didn't start until really my sophomore year. The second time I drank, I got drunk. I blacked out, cried that night, like, and I woke up the next morning and I wanted to do it again because I found that, what I have found, and I'm still working through the deeper issues, is, a lot of self esteem, low self worth, people pleasing, wanting to be the center of attention, and really needing, affirmation from other people to have worthiness of myself. And so, wanting to be friends with everyone, wanting to be friends with the popular crowd, wanting to be, sure of that as well. And so a lot of those guys, just what we would do is drink. And so part of the drinking came from making the decision to do so because it's what everyone else was doing. But then whenever I began doing that, I would see and find out that I felt more accepted. And then part of it, I didn't really care. I had more confidence in myself. I had a false sense of self worth. But really, I would say probably the biggest thing that laid the foundation of, why I decided to continue to drink and then ultimately use harder drugs was because it gave me a false sense of peace, and it gave me a false sense of happiness. It falsely filled, the void in my heart that I believe today can only be filled, with a relationship with Jesus, and that's what I have today. And so, high school looked like a lot of drinking, binge drinking on the weekends. I can remember, drinking on Friday and Saturday, and then Monday would roll around, and I would be so worried about what I'm going to be able to do this weekend in order to drink. If I would get wind of a party happening, I would make sure that I would be there. If that meant missing practice, I would do so, which led me to, quitting the sports that I loved and enjoyed and probably could have continued on doing them. And then that continued, switched into, as I got older, with work, I would skip work. I was not dependable at all in that sense. I was not responsible. Um, Everything revolved around, me being able to drink and being around people that would again falsely fill my bucket and the hole in my heart. And one thing led to another. Eventually, I started smoking weed more, the classic scenario of it all that a lot of people fall into. 18, 19, started smoking weed. And it's funny, the drug that ultimately brought me to my knees or brought me to my rock bottom and multiple rock bottoms, I had swore off before I even ever touched it. I have a family member that their friend was a football player. I won't say where, but it was, a Division One Power Five school. This dude was going to go to the NFL, and he overdosed on pain pills. And so before I even did my first pain pill, part of it was being scared, and part of it was just like, I'm not going to do it. This is the only knowledge I have of it, that it took away the life of a friend of my cousin's that, was ultimately had a bright future ahead of him. And, I just found myself in a situation, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was with one of my good friends, and took that pill, and that was just like this is it, like, this is what you're looking for. Numbed everything. I would say it numbed the pain, but like I didn't really have any trauma pain, but the pain came from like my own conception of things, and again the self-worth, having none of it, needing to be accepted whenever I was accepted, my whole life. And I had people that loved me around me the entire time, and I just needed more for whatever reason, or I needed it from different people. And so the pills started, and that's when things just, began to get really bad. And I went into my first treatment center January 1st of 2018, right before I turned 21. I got out, and I remember, reading in the big book for the first time around that, my first treatment center, and I just felt like it was, I could replace the person that was being described in the book with me, and it would fit right in. And things, felt like they made sense as far as, why I was doing the things that I was doing. And like the common theme, and, because like I said, this isn't my first treatment center, I could go into details about all the other ones, but there's been four total, three other, well, I guess five total, including this one, three other times after the first, to where I would go to the treatment center. And going back, what the common theme is, like, I learned these things, I'll practice them a little bit, but I'll never go deeper. I'll never work and search harder for, the deeper things. I'll just kind of continue to bury them, as, has been said to me, as long as I'm not putting another one in me, I'm fine. And I wouldn't be fine, it would pick up right where it left off. Things that would happen after my stints of sobriety, and then going into stints of, just relapse and using, they would just get worse and worse and worse. And then ultimately that led to, it's actually crazy, probably almost a year to the date, July 2nd of 2023 is whenever I began to do fentanyl for the first time. And that's another thing, like the pills. I said I would never do pills. Um, and then when I started doing pills, it was like, as long as I can stay away from, the heroin, which, in St. Louis, there is no more heroin. It's all fentanyl. And so it's like, as long as I can stay away from the fentanyl, I'll be okay. And I thought I would never do it. And it wasn't this big decision that I made. I just know that I knew a guy that was doing it, and I messaged him. And probably within, an hour or two later, I had fentanyl, and I did it, and I did an overdose. And so I kept doing that for, about a month. Uh, Quit doing it for about 2 weeks, and picked it back up. And then within 2 days of picking it back up, I had a fatal overdose, to where my mother, luckily, I was not living or not staying at the place that I was living in my apartment. I was at my parents' house. My mom heard me from the upstairs asphyxiating, which is, lungs filling up with fluid. She found me in the basement, turning blue, fingernails blue, teeth black, all these things. Like I was, if not dead, knocking on the door, halfway through that door. And it's by the grace of God truly that I'm alive. Besides that overdose and, being Narcaned and a couple of times and uh, brought me back to life. There were other issues, right? There were issues with my heart. My left ventricle was not pumping blood properly. There were issues with my liver. The enzymes were through the roof. The doctors thought that my kidneys were so shut down for, the amount of time that I was overdosed that it was a possibility I was going to have to be on dialysis. And then really what was probably outside of the fentanyl, the most major threat was my potassium levels. They were at like a 6.2 or 6.5 or something like that. They were over the normal levels. And so God completely healed me of that. I was on a breathing tube, life support for 4 days, and God during that time and through the, truly the power of prayer. Like I said, my father is a pastor. He's a worship pastor of a very large community of people, and all of those people were praying for me. People were coming into the hospital and praying around my bedside, and that is a very important factor of why I believe that I'm still here today. And I know that I do have purpose today, and I do truly believe that. I mean, it's obvious that that would have been a wake-up call, right? But the truth of the matter is, I can't say for sure, that I wouldn't have gone and used soon after that if I wouldn't have came out here. And so I do believe that, in a way, it was God's way of saying, listen, man, you're mine, you are my child, and I'm not going to let you suffer on this earth anymore if you continue to go and neglect and don't go down the path that I have for you. I'll just take you home into heaven. And so, bridging into that, I want to go back to my first day at my rehab. Like I said, the big book, and reading that, like I said, it spoke to me very, very much. And also during that time, I began to go back to church. Like I said, I was raised in church. I went to church my whole life. Even whenever my mother was carrying me, I was in church, in her womb. And I went back to church and I started to read, the Bible because I wanted to. Again, I wasn't forced, but, going through the motions as a kid and teenager, you just go to church because if I went to church, I could do what, pretty much whatever else I wanted to. My parents would let me hang out with the people that, I wanted to. But I read the Bible and it just began to truly, it truly become the living Word of God to me. And that is the center and foundation of my recovery, is my relationship with Jesus. And, the third step in the program is all about surrendering and giving your will and your life over to the care of God. And so in order to give that over to Him, I have to understand God more. And that's, where the times I would be sober and successful in sobriety, I would read my Bible and I would stay in prayer and I would stay in community and I would stay in fellowship with people. Therefore, knowing the will of God more and knowing that I was able to follow that more. And so again, the common thing would be slipping away from that, slowly backing away from that, and that's what would lead me back every single time. I would say right now the difference is, I think the surrender factor of it is different because, again, like I would say, in times of sobriety, I wouldn't work on the deeper issues. Okay, and so today I'm surrendering, not necessarily, I'm surrendering the deeper issues, but in the same sense, I wouldn't work on the deeper issues. In sobriety, I wouldn't surrender the little things. I would still try to control the show completely. And are there times, throughout the day where I still do that? Absolutely. But today I'm aware, of what that truly is and what like truly is going on and kind of the fire I'm playing with that. And so off the top of my head, I would say the surrender aspect is what's different today. And just being consciously aware at all times that, anytime that I'm starting to take my will back over, again, I'm playing with fire. And it starts off small like it usually does. But once you get back to that point of backsliding, the addiction picks up right where it left off. And I know that for a fact, because one thing I said I wouldn't do, I did, and then one thing I said I would for sure never do. Once I'm able to, by the grace of God, be in recovery and be sober, I know that my addiction, and I know that the way that I was created can be used for purpose, because there's so many people out there suffering from this thing. I know there is. Um, and it's not just people with bad upbringings. Like I said, I was brought up probably in a Hallmark movie kind of way, but there were deeper issues going on that developed in my childhood for whatever reason. No one's at fault. There's no blame to be made, but it happened. And my solution was drugs and alcohol to that. Um, and so, again, I just know, and the ultimate purpose that I have is to be a living testament of the glory of God and the transformation that He can have in people's lives. And then, even after the fact of being transformed for a little while and going back, to the old ways, God's never ending love, and, like the song Reckless Love, no matter how many times I might turn my back to Him, He's still right there pursuing me. And I've experienced that, like this last time and the other times as well. And just to be able to share that with people, that hope is never lost. Uh, as corny as it sounds, like no matter how many times you fall back or fall down, it's about how many times you get back up. The Bible talks about, the righteous man falls 7 times, but he gets back up 7 times. And I do believe that. And again, purpose. I'm purpose driven today. I'm learning more of what my purpose is. But my purpose right now is to be in a community and a brotherhood, and a church family, work environment, uh, people I meet day to day in my life that either need encouragement as far as, like we're in this together. If they're in recovery, knowing that they're in this, we're in this together. Or maybe it's just someone that doesn't know the Lord and being, a positive impact in their life. And the Bible talks a lot about light, and that people will see that light, radiant from us. And I hope that people can see that, and maybe the conversation can begin. Like, what's going on with you, man? And I can have an opportunity to share the gospel with people. A lot of times at work, where I work, it's very seeing a lot of different people throughout the day. And obviously, I'm not from here, so sometimes conversations will, get brought up and be like, "Yeah, I'm actually from St. Louis," and a lot of times they'll be like, "Well, what brought you out here?" And for instance, this older gentleman, talked about what are you out here for? And I told him I'm in recovery, and he's like, man, my son lost his battle to addiction a year ago, and in that moment, I was able to encourage him. Probably not even through my words, but probably just because he sees a guy that, is trying to do this thing, and I can't do that on my own. That's absolutely God putting me in the right place at the right time for His glory. Um, Everything brings glory back to Him. And again, some days look a lot better. Some days are a lot better or a lot worse. But I know that my purpose is directly involved with that. And so the St. Louis guys that get out here to the Rock is sent by Art. And Art's a great guy. I'll tell you a little bit about him. And this leads back into answering the question of should family members separate themselves or be separated from people that are in treatment in the beginning stages and early days. Art had a son who lost a battle to addiction, and his son had a vision of starting this place that sends people out to different treatments to find recovery ultimately, find a relationship with Jesus. And so Art sends guys out here, and right off the bat, we don't have our phone for 30 days. And the whole purpose behind that is so that our families themselves can heal. They can know that we're in a safe place. They can trust that they're, and for me, my family knew that I was in a safe place. They knew I wasn't going anywhere. They knew that as long as some willingness was there on my end, that I was right where I needed to be. And so I can't imagine how hard it is for people with family members to do that and disconnect themselves, but it's necessary. Um, because enabling can be disabled in that way. People enabling each other and all this stuff. And the family members have to heal as well. We put people through a lot of trauma and a lot of hard things, and so the best thing that I can do today. And I talk to my parents, a couple times throughout the week, but that's today. At first I had to ease back into it because I didn't want to open up any grounds to manipulate my way to go back to St. Louis. And so loving family members from a distance at first is very beneficial, and I think it's needed. And I think that that'll open up the door to be able to love them correctly, like that I can actually truly love my family for who they are, not to get something out of them, but love them because like they've loved me throughout this whole process. And that love isn't based on how much we talk. It's based on actions that I've experienced with them